In this video, we're going to get just a little bit of practice working with the complement of each event and particularly just finding the complements of events. So for our first example, suppose we roll a single fair six-sided die. I would like to let event A be the event that we roll a 2 or a 3, and then of course we want to find the complement of that. So in some situations, it's very easy to kind of quickly negate the event, but in situations like this, I think we can be a little bit more specific. So if I think about the sample space for this particular event, if we just roll a single fair six-sided die, it could be a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or a 6. Now, when we talk about event A, that is that we roll a 2 or a 3. These are event A. And when I think about the complement of this event, the complement is everything that is not included in the event. So if 2 and 3 are in the event, then that means that 1, 4, 5, and 6 would be the complement of that event. So all of these different outcomes would represent a complement. So if I wanted to write this out, I might say a complement equals, we roll a 1, 4, 5, or 6, something along those lines there. You could also write it as a set. You could say 1, 4, or 5, or 6. Let's take a look at the next problem. It says you get an A on your statistics quiz. In this situation, it's pretty easy to negate it. The statement that's given right here, it says you get an A on your stats quiz. Well, maybe the complement, or let's write it as a complement, is you don't get an A. Do not get an A on your stats quiz. Now, the thing that's going to be really important is that between an event and its complement, it needs to cover every single possible outcome. So if we say you either get an A or you don't get an A, yeah, one of those two things has to happen. There's no other way that this experiment could unfold. The third example right here says a randomly selected person is younger than 35. Now we have to be careful with this one. This one's really easy to make a mistake. So I want you to pause the video for just a second just to think about that. What's the complement of a randomly selected person is younger than 35? So after you've had a minute to think about that, I'm going to give the most common answer that I get from students, and that is the person is older than 35, which unfortunately is not the correct answer. This is not the correct answer. And again, pause the video and think about, why isn't this the complement? What's missing from this? And if you stop and think about it, one of the things I just mentioned in the second example is between an event and its complement, it needs to cover every single possibility. So here we have a person is younger than 35. In the proposed complement, we have a person is older than 35. That doesn't count every single possibility, because what if a person is perhaps exactly 35? So if I wanted to write out the complement of this event, I would have to say the person is 35 or older. Now I'm saying, hey, they could be exactly 35 or they could be older than 35. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about every single potential outcome. I oftentimes think, especially when we're working with more complicated examples, it does help to take a second just to write out what the sample space is, what the event is, and then you can just say, well, everything that's left over then must